Open world games are some of the most popular games on the market right now, but there are a lot of people that feel like they may be a little too common, but that also doesn't mean that there aren't some really good ones on the market right now. In fact, 2024 is going to go down in gaming history as one of the best years for open world games, and we're going to go over those games. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Chaos here. Today, we're going to check out the 10 best open world games of 2024, both upcoming and already released. So you let me know in the comments which open world game you think will be the best this year. Drop a like. Make sure you guys are subscribed with those notifications fully turned on. And at number 10 today, I'm excited for this one. I really am. Star Wars Outlaws. Now I know the game has gotten a lot of heat for some of the early promotional material and the insanely expensive special editions. The game itself, though, has so much potential to be something really awesome and an experience that Star Wars fans have been waiting decades for, myself included. We've never actually gotten a proper open world Star Wars game, and now that Ubisoft has been on the job for several years, I think they've come up with something that could be very unique compared to other Star Wars games throughout the years, while also being pretty distinct as an entity from other Ubisoft sandboxes. Now, there will be tons of planets to visit, characters to meet, alliances to make or break, and it's all going to be set during the original trilogy era, which desperately needs some love right now. Star Wars Outlaws may have had a controversial publisher attached to it, but the game itself looks fun. I'm excited to see what it finally ends up being when it launches later this year. At number 9 today, Sea of Thieves, the PS5 version. Sea of Thieves is one of the most popular games in Xbox's lineup, and while it did have a very rough start, I was there at the very beginning. It was a content drought like you've never seen. It was patched up. It was. I mean, the promised original form is now real, plus much more. Earlier this year, Microsoft officially launched the PlayStation 5 version of Sea of Thieves. They expanded the size of the player base. They made the experience more accessible to everybody. I mean, it's interesting to see a first-party Xbox game available on PlayStation. But it's actually a great thing for more people to have access to the game, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Xbox handles their release platforms going forward. Sea of Thieves is an awesome co-op game, and there's really nothing else quite like it on the market, so give it a try with your friends if you have. At number 8 today, Rise of the Ronin. It came and it went a little quicker than Sony was probably hoping. It would have, but the game we ended up with is still fun, even if its release was largely overshadowed by a different game that we'll talk about later on today's list. This open world game was developed by Team Ninja. It was released in March to pretty solid reviews, had a really good open world, addictive combat and gameplay loops, and a pretty interesting story. If you were expecting Ghost of Tsushima 2, you were probably a tad disappointed. But Rise of the Ronin had great personality of its own. I think it was deserving of more mainstream success than it actually enjoyed. Unfortunately, it was tasked with essentially going face-to-face with Dragon's Dogma 2, which was a confrontation it wasn't going to win. But if you're a PS5 player, I highly recommend. Go grab it. Try it out, especially since it's been heavily discounted at most of the places out there. Most of the outlets, you can get it pretty cheap. At number 7, Ghost of Tsushima, the PC version. Speaking of open world games set in Japan. Now, Ghost of Tsushima is the gold standard. We all know that. One of the best games of 2020. The critically acclaimed open world game has finally come to PC. And they did a port. And it's good. Has some of the best presentation immersion in any video game of the 2020s. And the combat is awesome. Drop down from a tree, slice an enemy's head off with a single swipe. It's honestly one of the coolest things you can do in any video game. And the open combat scenarios are really tense and they never get boring. It runs like a dream on PC. Looks even more incredible than it did on the PS4 and the PS5. Pick this one up. At number 6, Assassin's Creed Shadows. One more open world game set in Japan, and I am really excited for this. Much like Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows has generated some controversy since its trailer drop, but I personally think it has just a world of potential to be something special. AC Shadows has been in development for a long time, and it's meant to be this massive upgrade to the AC RPG formula that was introduced in Origins. Shadows is going to have a super sophisticated stealth mechanic system, a ton of play styles at your disposal for you to overcome tons of challenges across your journey, and I mean, you can do the perspective of 2 different characters, a samurai or a shinobi. Fans have been asking for a Japanese Assassin's Creed game for over a decade, and I still think there's a solid chance that Shadows lives up to that hype. Now we crack into the top 5. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. The Yakuza series was a massive fan favorite. So far, sequel series Like a Dragon has been doing a good job to keep the spirit of Yakuza alive while we're shaking up the gameplay. Now, Infinite Wealth is a trademark Yakuza RPG with lots of stuff to discover, completionist activities to get lost in if that's your thing, but it also tells a very interesting story in this world with a lot of really engaging characters. IW is also the first game in the series to be set in Hawaii, which is actually pretty cool. It's a shakeup to the formula, and it feels super fresh to longtime fans. Like a Dragon, admittedly, isn't the best game in the series to date, but it's good. It's worth a look if you're interested in the franchise, or if you just want an open-world RPG that feels super different than most of the other AAA cookie-cutter titles in the genre. At number 4 today, Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, the wait between Dragon's Dogma games was a decade, and by the time 2 launched, the entire gaming industry was watching. Now, Capcom did end up in some hot water with the state of the game at launch. You got your bugs, your microtransactions, all that good stuff. But the game itself is really good. And when Dragon's Dogma 2 is working as intended, it's probably one of the best RPGs to come out in the 2020s. It's a dark fantasy adventure. You create a custom character, lots of options for combat skills. You venture around the world. You interact with NPCs. You try to keep the world safe from a dark force that threatens to destroy it. Yeah, it's cool. Dragon's Dogma 2 is a fantastic game, and if you're interested in Baldur's Gate 3 but prefer real-time combat and single-player gameplay, this is the one I recommend. The game has been patched several times. It's currently in a much better state than when it launched, so give it a try if you passed on it during that launch window. Now we've arrived at the top 3. Persona 3 Reload. The Persona franchise really blew up in the mainstream gaming world after Persona 5, and in response to all the new fans, developers Atlus have started going back and remaking the older entries in the franchise. They've updated them for modern fans. Persona 3 Reload is a full, top-to-bottom remake of Persona 3. That game launched in 2006. Keeps the spirit, much of the design of the original game intact, but it makes a ton of quality of life changes while also updating the visuals with an absolutely stunning style that gives the franchise character. Is it as good as Persona 5? I'm not sure. That depends on who you ask. Many fans still insist that Persona 5 is the series standard, but I've seen quite a few people say that Reload is just as good if not better. Either way, it's a good game. It's worth a shot if you're a fan of the series or if you're just looking for a good place to start in the series. At number 2 today, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Square Enix took a massive, massive gamble when they decided to remake Final Fantasy VII as this massive 3-part modern action RPG. They updated the original's top-down, turn-based gameplay, all of it. They also expanded the story. Now we're playing through 3 games with these characters instead of 1. Rebirth is the second chapter in the remake trilogy. It was met with critical acclaim when it launched on the PS5 earlier this year. The gameplay is incredible. The story takes a ton of new twists and turns that weren't present in the original game, all with the added benefit of being able to interact with these characters more than ever before. It is a fantastic Final Fantasy game, and I'm ready to see how they actually wrap this trilogy up. At number 1 today, the best open world game of 2024 has to be Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. I know it's not technically a new game, but the hype surrounding this is insane. There's a very good chance this expansion ends up being the most critically acclaimed game release of the entire year. It's going to be huge, huge expansion to the base game, which is already a massive game by every measurement. Shadow of the Erdtree will add an entire new map to the game, new stories to tell, characters to meet, weapons to master, monsters to kill eventually. This may very well be the largest paid expansion in gaming history. And From Software has already confirmed it's their biggest expansion to date. This DLC will substantially be larger than most full game releases now, and from everything we've seen, I think this is going to be absolutely amazing. There you have it, my friends. Let me know one open world game that is available to you or up and coming that we didn't mention on the list. Thank you for all the support you guys have given on the channel, and I'll see you soon.